are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, we want to welcome you to our latest webinar, AutoCAD IQ session. Welcome, whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good night for you. We're happy to have you with us. Today we are continuing in our productivity series. Today we're going to be looking at some tips and tricks to hopefully make you a bit more productive. So Volker will be running the show today as typical. Christina and I will be helping with answering questions and ad-libbing where necessary. We do have a few polls we're going to run right off the bat, if that's okay. So I'll run the first one. We're just looking to see if this is your first webinar or if you've been with us before. So if you could, we'd love to see if you've been here before. And it looks like a good amount, 85% or viewers or so, have been to previous sessions. So welcome back, and also welcome to those newcomers. We hope that this will not be your only one you attend with us. We're going to ask the second question, which is just trying to get an idea of what type of software everybody is using. And looks like more than half are on LT. And about 30% on AutoCAD, and then 15% on the verticals. So the majority of what we go over is applicable to all of those, so you should be able to find something that will help you today. And then we're just going to ask one more quick one here, which is if you're able to view the YouTube recordings of these sessions from your office. So if you aren't aware, all of these sessions are recorded. We have a YouTube page where we post them all, and hopefully they're useful for you to go back and look at, or maybe share with others who weren't able to attend live, and that's fantastic. 97% are able, so that's great to see. We know sometimes offices have some restrictions, so that is great to see that for 97% of you that's not an issue. So I will close that session, and with that I will turn this over to Volker, who will be helping us today. Go ahead, Volker.
All right. Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Christina, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for attending, especially those who have returned and those who are new. We're really happy to see you all here. So, as Sean said, we are going to be working with some productivity tips and tricks. And prior to doing that, though, and some of you are probably getting bored with some of these beginning slides, but just some general housekeeping here. Do leave questions in the chat window, and Christina and Sean will be answering those as they come in. And this session will be recorded. We get a lot of emails on this, so I just want to point out, yes, they are recorded. We try to post them as soon as we can. And once, every once in a while it takes a little longer than other times, but they are available on our YouTube channel. This slide deck can also be downloaded. There were some problems with the link. I found that out last week. That has been fixed, and any of the PowerPoints from previous sessions can now be downloaded. All right, we also have our landing page, and again, with the recordings, as far as that goes, this picture on the right side of the screen is a little out of date. Don't worry about that. That's been updated on the website. But here is a quick link to our YouTube channel. And if you were to click on this playlist verbiage at the top left of that video, you would be able to access the previous videos from there as well. So just a quick way to get to those videos.
Hey, Volker.
Yes, Sean.
Sorry to interrupt. We're getting a few questions that folks are only hearing audio. They're not seeing the PowerPoint. I see it here on my end. I don't know, Christina, if you're seeing the PowerPoint or not.
No.
I can see that as well.
I think Volker's resetting it right now. So
yeah,
what I'd say is, okay, some of those are jumping in and saying they can see it now. So if you're not seeing it, maybe just briefly close the meeting and rejoin. But it looks like it might just be sporadic. So
yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay. No, glad you said that. Maybe the reset helped some people who weren't able to see it. But as I was saying, you can easily get to the previous recordings right from this playlist. Also, feel free to leave feedback. There's a link to that on this page as to what you'd like to see in future webinars. If you have some additional feedback and would like to email us, go ahead and do so using the email address here at the bottom. Please send emails to that address, not to us personally. We normally don't have the time to answer those directly, whereas we have a group of people who can answer the questions for you. Okay, so just briefly, some of the previous webinars that we've had. Last week we had macro automation, and we've had some on grips, plotting, and so forth. These are all available on that webinar YouTube channel. One more thing, briefly, is to check out our Autodesk Knowledge Network. I have top 10 viewed articles listed here, but those are the top 5 to minimize the amount of verbiage. All these links and more are available on knowledge.autodesk.com as well as within this PowerPoint. And it's a great resource for learning, for troubleshooting, for downloads. So I encourage you to visit that website. All right. Let's get to today's agenda. There's not much there, okay? Just lots of tips on how you can make the most of AutoCAD software using both old school and new school functionality. Some of it's AutoCAD functionality and some of it's Windows functionality. So AutoCAD, there's a lot of stuff we can do through Windows, and I'll show you a couple of tricks that'll help you get the most out of using Windows within AutoCAD. Okay, so we're going to go into the demo here, and I do want to make one comment on this picture. Thanks to Christina for providing that. One question in a previous webinar was, what do you mean by back in the day? Okay, it means something different for everybody. For me, it's about release 10, okay, of AutoCAD, and that would be about 1990, 91. For others, it could mean 97 or 82 or whatever, okay, but you'll hear me refer to that a lot, and just a brief explanation there. I'm going to go ahead and switch to my AutoCAD.
That's actually Volker. I don't know if you let people know. That's actually you and I in that picture.
I wasn't going to admit that, Sean.
Oh, okay.
All right. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is, the fact that we have many ways to be more productive in AutoCAD, and some of those are whether we start up AutoCAD quickly to launch a specific file. We can easily do that in a couple of ways, okay? And one of those is just from the desktop. Now, I already have AutoCAD open here, okay? And typically when you open AutoCAD, you're going to get something. Go ahead and save that. You're going to get something like this when you typically launch AutoCAD the first time. But what if you want to start AutoCAD with your corporate template? Well, one way to do this is to create a startup switch. And we actually talked about this in a previous webinar. And that is, I hope everybody can still see my screen there. I wasn't quite sure what happened there.
I can see the slide.
The slide, but not my desktop.
Yeah, we're seeing the image of the back in the day, but we're not seeing AutoCAD.
I wanted to show my desktop. Maybe I can't show that tip, so we'll go with another one instead. Boy, These glitches, huh? These awkward moments. All right, I am launching AutoCAD LT. I was going to show you a shortcut switch. I'll actually update the PowerPoint slide with a quick description of how to do that. Creating a startup switch to launch with a specific template. So instead, what I'll do is show you another way to do this within AutoCAD. I'm going to go into the options, and I hope everybody can see AutoCAD. And I select options by right mouse clicking over the command line and go to the Files tab. Under the Files tab, we have Template Settings. And here we have the location of our template files, but we also have a function called QNew. So if I want to launch AutoCAD with a specific template of my own design, yes.
I'm sorry, I know I'm interrupting a lot today. We're still not seeing AutoCAD. There's a lot of comments coming in as well that folks are still just seeing the slide. I'm not sure what's what's happening.
All right, let's try this. Do we see it now?
I see AutoCAD.
Okay. I am not. Yeah, I have to apologize. They did change the GoToMeeting software a couple of weeks ago, and it seems to be acting a little different than it used to. So, anyway, I'm going to continue. Sorry about that, people.
Nope, no problem. We're good now.
We're going to go into, I went into Options. I did that by right mouse clicking, Options, Files, Support File Search Path, and then here we have Template Settings. There we go. There it is. Now in Template Settings, we have the location of our current template files, and then we have an option called QNew. So if I want a specific template, I just double-clicked on that path. It launched the Select File browser. Let's say I want a specific template to open up every time I start AutoCAD, or every time I click on the QNew button up here, that white sheet of paper. Then I could select that, and it will launch this particular file every time I click QNew. So I'm just going to demonstrate that so you know I'm not lying to you. Click on New, and there's a new unnamed drawing, although it's got content in it. But that is a template drawing that first time I hit Save, it's going to prompt me for a name. So that's one way to save time right there. All right, having done that, let's take another look at Options. And in the Options dialog, we have a User Preference tab. And this is more about using your mouse right now. We have an old school way of working where whenever we use the right mouse button, it would act as an enter command or as a repeat the last command. Okay? Nowadays, it brings up a right-click menu. Well, using this option here under User Preferences, right-click Customization, you can turn on what's called time-sensitive right-click. And this value right here of 250 milliseconds works perfectly for me, but you may want to play around with it. Once I click Apply and Close, apply OK. Now, if I go into, say, the line command, which I just did, if I right-click and hold down for just a fraction of a second, it'll give me the right-click menu. I'm going to pick a point here, right-click menu. But if I right-click quickly, it cancels. If I right-click quickly again, note the command line, it's now gone back and repeated that command. So that's something to play with. If you haven't used it, it may take you a little while to get used to, but it's really a very functional tool, allowing you to get work done quickly, repeating commands or ending them. Let's take another look at a Windows function here. oftentimes you'll have to go back to the same folder several times to open up drawing or save it there. Maybe you work between 3 or 4 different locations on your hard drive or network. And you don't always want to use this browse function, okay? So if I want to go to whoops, fingers aren't working today. Let's say I need to go back to this folder here all the time, which I do today. What I'm going to do is make it active. So there's my folder. And then up here in the top left corner is add current folder to places. You also have add to favorites, but that's your kind of like your Windows Internet Explorer type of favorites. I'm going to add current folder to places, and it adds this folder here. So if I cancel right now, it prompts me to save the changes to this places list. And if I repeat that command, I'm back in that folder, right? I don't want to be there. I want to be here. And I can easily access my files. Right mouse clicking over this, you can remove it. You can add another folder. You can rename it through the properties here. And you can add, I think it's up to 5 additional folders onto this. I forget now. I usually have just a couple on there. Some of these other ones can be deleted, others can't. But a great way to get to your drawings. So having done that, I'm going to go ahead and open up 2 of my drawings just by holding down on the Control key. I've selected 2 drawings, which allows me to open up 2 files at one time. Or even more. You could also use the Shift key to select all of them. Let me close that one. We'll get rid of that one as well. So that was the Places bar. Okay.
That one got a nice comment in the comments, by the way, Volker. That seems like it was a big hit.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, it's a lot of people don't look at those little things like that, or until somebody points them out, really. So I'm glad that helped. I'm going to go back into options quickly. Oftentimes you're probably saving back to a previous release of AutoCAD, maybe for a customer, maybe you aren't, but I know a lot of folks are, and they're using the Save As command. Well, if you are working on a project where you have a lot of work to be done that needs to be saved as a previous release, make it a little easier on yourself. And in the options box dialog under Open and Save, here you can choose from various flavors of AutoCAD releases. Okay, going back to release 14, LT97, LT2000, LT2007. So all those drawing formats are available. Once you make the selection and click Apply, every time you save, it's going to save to that format. Just keep that in mind if you're going to be, want to work with some of the newer functionality in AutoCAD. For example, if you go past 2008, annotation scaling is not going to be available to you. So be aware of that. So that is saving to a previous drawing format. It'll also save as a default to DXF file. So, all right. Here's one thing that I should have taken that off of there earlier, so it would have been more of a surprise. But on the Home tab here, we have the Layer drop-down control. Now, layers, I think they're like the second used command in AutoCAD next to undo, okay? And the thing about it is we have this control we probably use quite often throughout the day. But if you're on a different ribbon tab, that is not available. Okay? Now, without any customization of any kind here, you can easily make this available on the quick access bar. One way to do this is to right mouse click over that. Notice how it says Add Quick Access Toolbar. And so I've added it to the quick access toolbar, and now it's going to be available regardless of what tab I'm in. Okay, so this will allow you to work with your layers more better, so to speak. You can also add additional commands from the drop-down here. One option I like having is the plot preview. This is just a quick way to get to my plot preview, having that icon there. Additional commands can also be chosen through the More Commands. That'll take you into the CUI editor, and you can choose from just about any command you have. So a nice little shortcut I like to have available up there.
Now the crowd is professing their love for you, Volker, just to let you know.
I'm glad the demo's worthwhile, okay? So, but I'm going to keep moving fast here, okay, just so we can squeeze in as much as we can. All right, so many of you are familiar with aliases, typing in the letter L for the line command and so on. Maybe many of you are not familiar with that. Maybe you're just using the ribbon but not the command line. The bottom line is we can easily type in what is called an alias for just about any command in AutoCAD. And I'm going to show you how you can add your own aliases to AutoCAD or modify the ones that are available to you. And the way we do this is under the Manage tab. We have in the Customization panel, we have Edit Aliases. There's also the autocorrect list and synonym list, but I'm not going to get into that. All right, so Edit Aliases brings up a text editor, and briefly, in AutoCAD, not AutoCAD LT, AutoCAD, yes, I know we have an alias editor which works a little differently, but it's an Express tool. And some users may not have Express tools installed, so this is the way you would also edit your aliases. I'm not going to talk about the shell functions that we have in here, but you'll see we have an alias for just about any AutoCAD command. Now, back in the day, when I started out, there were like 12 aliases, okay, 12 commands that we had aliases for, and we'd add our own. That was to keep resources to a minimum, as these are all loaded into memory. Nowadays, like I said, we have just about every command in AutoCAD, it seems like it, except one that we're going to add in a moment. Some of the aliases are actually longer than the commands. Is what it seems like nowadays, so I'm not sure why that is, but you can modify this. What I'm going to do is there is no alias for the QSelect command. For some reason, not sure why, and I use that all the time, so I'm just going to quickly show you how to do this. I'm going to go ahead and like it in alphabetical order, so I'm going to keep it like that. Whoops, need to go down one more. So I'm going to go ahead and put QSE, just use 3 letters on that. It's just my preference. You could do whatever you want. And then I'm just going to go ahead and space over a few. You could also use the tab bar. But after the alias and the comma separation there, the space is just a visual thing. I'm going to put an asterisk, which tells AutoCAD that, hey, this is the command I want to use here. And then you would type in that command. So QSelect is the command I want, quick select command. And then I'm going to go ahead and save that PGP file. Now, watch what happens here. QSE. Pretty cool, huh? Now the thing is, yes?
That's okay. We had a bit of a delay, but it just now came up. Okay.
All right. So sometimes that QSelect may not work. I actually had it in my PGP a little earlier, and it may not have cleared the memory or whatever. I'm not sure. So here's something. Make a note of this. After you create your alias, and save the file, you want to be aware of a command called Reinit. Okay? So if your PGP file does not update, you need to invoke this command, this reinitialization command, select PGP file, click OK, and it works. Okay? So Reinit, R-E-I-N-I-T. N-I-T, yeah. Okay, so that is the PGP file. Everybody has a different one, it seems like it, so don't always expect the same functionality on another user's computer. All right, I showed this one in my macro webinar last week, but it is one of my favorites, so I have to show it again without putting it on a tool palette. We all use our O-snaps, at least I'm hoping so. We want to be precise with our drawings, okay? And if I am not sure what the settings are on mine, I could go into a dialog, I could pull up a menu down here off of the status bar for the O-snaps, okay? To me, that's actually a lot more work than just quickly typing in Oz mode and changing the value to 15, which sets my O-snaps to endpoint, midpoint, center, and node. And I'm going to show you that right here, endpoint, midpoint, center, and node. Those are my preferred favorites. So how do we find out how we can use Oz mode to our advantage? Type it in at the command prompt. F1 is so helpful in AutoCAD. It really is. It goes right to the command you're in for the topic. And then you can just say, okay, I like endpoint, I like midpoint, center, and node. What does this add up to? So 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 4 is 7, plus 8 is 15. That's the value I typed in. So very easy to set this. In the PowerPoint, I have a link to the Oz mode system variable. Actually, Christina or Sean, if you could verify that. If not, I'll put it in there. Make use of the help. Make use of this shortcut. If you want to be precise, you don't want to waste a lot of time going through dialogues, it's a quick way to change that. Okay, next up. This command, I've used it once in 23 odd years of drafting. Other than demonstrations, of course. And it's an old school command. It's called the change command. It's not on a toolbar. It's not on a ribbon. It's not in a whatever. You have to type it in. And it was actually the predecessor to the properties palette in many ways. So let's say we have this line work here, which coincidentally we do, and it's all pointed at these weird angles, and I want to straighten it out real quick. Well, I could do something like grab the endpoint grip and straighten it out, turning on ortho or whatever, but I'm lazy. So I'm going to type in change. Okay, that is the command we're working with, change. And it prompts me to select objects. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a crossing window here. And I'm done selecting objects, and now the prompt is change point or properties. So properties are, color, line type, line weight, etc. I want to change the point, but I want these horizontal. So I'm going to do an ortho by pressing F8. I'm going to pick a point somewhere here and pick. And the crowd goes wild, right? Okay, maybe just my imagination. Where would I use this? Here's a better example. So I've got this wiring diagram. Somebody was stretching this and they kind of skewered it. Okay? So I need to straighten it out so I can make it look a little more professional. So again, I'm going to go into the change command. I'm going to right-click to repeat my last command. Put a crossing window here. Right-click to tell it I'm done selecting. Verify ortho is on, and I'm just going to go ahead and pick a point somewhere on the right. Pretty neat, huh? Okay, maybe it's just me. But I do, like I said, I've only used it like once in a couple of decades worth of work, but it's good to know about. May come in handy someday.
Do you want to take a couple questions real quick, Volker, before we go on to the next?
Yeah, sure. Why don't we do that?
Before we go on to the next tool. So first, just a basic question. What is the text editor that you are using? Somebody was wondering.
Oh, it's called TextPad, TextPad, and I think they have a trial version, or I don't know, but it's really, I've used it for decades, and normally you'd pull up Notepad here, so I have to apologize in a way because I should be using the built-in tools that Windows has. But it is set as my default text editor, so it's what pops up. It's the way it's going to.
Okay.
The way it's going to be in my webinars.
Okay. So another question was, can we apply aliases to the macros that we saw from the previous webinar?
You could, but you don't want to. The reason being, let's say you send that macro to a colleague who has a different set of aliases, then the macro is not going to work. You know, so it's always best to use the full command in the macro. You can then use shortcuts for the options. So, for example, here in the change command, you know, I would use the change, but then I could use P for properties as the option. I would discourage you from using an alias. Yes, you can, but I would discourage you from doing so.
Okay. Great. And the last one, I'll leave up to your discretion if you can fit it into your schedule or not today. Somebody was asking if you could show the fastest way to use the array command. So again, I'll leave that up to you if you have time today, and if not, maybe we can add that into build it into a future webinar when we can make sure to schedule it time-wise. But I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see what we can get done here. But I'll make. I'll put myself on the chopping block right now by saying that we are going to be covering some additional modify commands. I think it's about like 3 webinars from now. I'll make sure to put the array command in that one. Okay. That I'll promise. All right.
All right.
Okay. So, hey, let's take a look at line types. All right. We have our AutoCAD line types, right? And if we want a custom one, we could probably find one. We could learn how to write them, all right? And I know I don't have a problem doing that, but some people, you know, hey, maybe I just got to get this done. It's only going to be used one time. I don't need a customized line type. I don't have the time to go through all that. Well, you can easily create a line type just using any line object in AutoCAD, preferably a spline or a P-line, and any block you may have in your drawing. It's not going to be a true line type, but all you need is a representation, right? So here we have a block. I'm just showing it for display purposes. You don't have to be seeing it in order for this to work. I've called this F mark, I think it is. Better double check that because I'm going to be using it. Yes, F mark. And here I have 2 splines. Now we have commands that are called measure and divide. And offhand, I forget where they're located. I think it's under the insert. I'm not going to search for it right now in order to save time. Again, measure and divide. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and type div. Takes me to the divide command. And what this does, it allows me to divide a line into segments, into whatever number of segments I specify. It doesn't physically break that line. It just creates by default point objects. However, when I select the line work here, whoops, got to select it. All right. It gives me the option to select a block. Now the block has to exist in the drawing in order for this to work. You don't get the option to browse the hard drive or network. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and type B for block, and I needed to know the name, F mark. This is old school. Okay, and then it says align the block with the object, yes or no. In this case, I'll just say yes. And then the number of segments for the line, and I'll type 6. And there we go. So it's created 6 segments, and basically I have a line here with these markers here. Okay, so this is a great way to quickly create a line type to represent whatever. Telephone, utility poles, whatever, maybe a fence post for a ranch. Let's take a look at measure. It works almost the same, but a little different. I'm going to type ME, that's the shortcut for measure by default. Excuse me, awkward. All right, I'm going to go ahead and select the line like I did previously. B for block, could have right-clicked and selected block as well off of the context menu. Block name F mark. Yeah, I want to align it. But this time I have to tell it, okay, how long do you want these segments to be? So maybe you want a fence pole every, 50 feet or something like that. The line's not that long, but I'm going to go ahead and type 10. And so every 10 units in this case, it has placed one of those blocks. You may find this useful, maybe not. But for some people, I know I've had to use it at times. It's come in very handy. All right. Switching gear by switching to a different drawing. I'm actually going to go ahead and erase that guy right now. I don't need him. We have some tools that were introduced in just a few releases ago. Can't even remember how long ago now. What if I need to select every single chair of this type in the drawing? We actually covered this here in our selection webinar. Some of you may have forgotten. Some of you may not have seen that. But we have this option here, select similar. If I select that, it now tells me that, whoops, I went into the erase command. Well, it doesn't tell me anything really, but it does show me in the drawing all the blocks that have been selected. So now I could erase them, move them, change properties, whatever. They're, by default, select similar bases the selection on a couple of property defaults. The only way you can change those defaults is by typing in the command select similar. I'll just pick it off of the list so you can see what I'm talking about here. And then you have the option for settings. So by default it goes with layer and the name of the object. Okay, but you can choose to say, look, I want to select stuff based on the line type or the color. If it's by layer, it probably wouldn't work. But if it has a color assigned to it and you need to clean that up, you can certainly change that here. So select similar. All right, so in this case here, let's take another look at this one step further. If I select this, I also have an option, and I love this. Add selected. Okay, so in this case, it could be a line, it could be text, whatever. In this case, it's a block. And because I said, hey, I want to add another block like this, I don't need to know its name. I don't need to go into the insert command. I just pick, go through the motions to place the block, and there it is. Okay, so we've done that, and let's do it again. Let's go ahead and add selected. Now, this phone has a insertion base point lower right. Most of the time, that'll work. Okay, and in this case, it probably doesn't matter much, but what if I want to be a little more specific? What if, let's say, instead of lower right, I want to have the top insertion point, top left corner is the insertion point because of how I have to place it. This is where we read the command line. We need to be aware of what's going on in AutoCAD. If you see my command line, I have 6 lines of text showing. I want to see a little bit of the history, and I also want to know what prompts are available. One of those is base point. So I'm going to go ahead and type B for base point. And now, look at that. I haven't inserted this block yet. It's just saying, okay, go ahead and pick that new base point. I have it, and I can now insert that block using that base point. So make use of the options within a command is what I'm trying to say here. All right. What if I have a block and I don't like the name of it? I screwed up. Maybe I typed it wrong, or a layer name needs to be changed. We need to rename it. The easiest way really is through a command called rename. There is no toolbar for this. There's no ribbon. You have to know this. In the past, there used to be a pull-down menu for it, I believe. Well, there was. But I'm going to go ahead and type rename. And it brings up a dialog. And it allows me to select any of the objects in AutoCAD. Notice all the different styles and objects we have in AutoCAD that have names. And in this case here, this one's FN phone. I'm just going to go ahead and type telephone, phone, rename to, and now it's called telephone. I'll click OK. So if I list this block now, there it is, the new name. Okay, speaking of renaming, I've had this happen many times where I've needed to have a block in the drawing. I've just created a bunch of blocks, and then I need to create another one based on that same block. Okay, maybe just a minor modification. Or maybe I just want to have 2 objects representing 2 different styles of phones. So I have this telephone here, but I want another one called FN phone, whatever that stands for. Okay? The easiest way to create a copy of this, because we can't just insert it, rename it. We can't just rename it and have the same block have 2 names. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and right mouse click here and go into the block editor. And this is, to me, is one of the coolest things about all the tools that are available in the block editor. This simple bit of functionality. And under open and save, we have save block as. So I'm going to go FN phone. I'll click OK. Oops, I didn't want to W block that. That was kind of dumb. But I'll just go ahead and close that now. And now I'll insert my FN phone. Whoops, I must have canceled out of that completely. User error, everybody. Do that again. That's one of those awkward moments many of you have seen from me before. Click OK. Now, close that. And there it is. Whew. I feel so much better now that it worked.
Practice makes perfect.
It does, it does. And this is the first time I've ever used this tool. Okay, so looking here we have FN phone, and looking here we have telephone. So I've had a need for it. You may as well one day. Okay. Have you ever received a file, and we are running short on time here, but have you ever received a file where you're working for another company? You aren't familiar with their standards, but you need to complete a drawing using the standards within that drawing file. Okay, you're unfamiliar with it, and you really don't have time to learn it all. What you can do, what I do often, is create a scratch pad, as I call it. It's probably not the technical verbiage, but I'm going to use Control F3. Oops. Control 3. I'm not sure what I was thinking. Control 3, and I'm going to create myself a new palette. Okay? And let's see, where is it? New palette. I'm going to call it Scratchpad because I'm that daring. All right, having done that, all I have to do here is drag the stuff I need to work with onto this palette. And let's take a look at this. So if I go into Computer here, go into Properties, tells me it's Computer, tells me the name here. It also tells me that the color is by layer and that it's on a layer called CPU. And this one here would tell me that it is on a layer called Chairs. I also need to work with some interior, cubicle walls, okay? So here we have a panel object, a line object on a panel. I'm going to go ahead and drag this up here as well. Now when you drag something like line work, it actually gives you this little arrow here so that when you click on it, you can select any type of line object available to you. If I go into Properties, though, I could easily change this to where I'm not using a flyout. And in this case, I'm just going to use the P-line command. We'll call this panels. Why not? It's on the panels layer, okay, and they are panels. Tells me what type of line type it is, and I'll click OK here. All right. So now, obviously, we did a thing on blocks and Express and tool palettes. Okay. So you can always revisit that webinar on the recordings, but now I can easily insert these. And if I go into the line command, notice they're all on the same layer. Okay. I should really turn on my, there we go, polar. All right, so I can easily reuse the stuff out of this drawing. All right, so what happens? I actually need to work in a new drawing here, okay? Let's take a look up here. We have some layers here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert a chair. Oh, that's pretty big for all that line work, huh? I'll go ahead and insert a computer. Notice the colors on these objects. I'm going to go ahead and draw some line work. And if we take a look here, you'll see not only has it brought in those objects, but it's also brought in the layer that those objects reside on, the properties of that layer. So this is a quick way to work with somebody else's stuff if you don't have that set up as a standard of your own. So,
and Volker, would you mind just showing one more time how you got the tool palettes open?
Oh yeah, sure. And actually, I'm sorry. I did do that rather quickly. I find myself getting into a rush here at the end. One way is to use the keyboard function Control 3. Okay, Control key and then the number 3. You can also go to the View tab. And here we have, somewhere on here, tool palettes. Let's see, layer properties, calculator. Oh, property sheet set manager. I never use this. Design center. Oh, more palettes. Text. Oh, it's right here, the big icon that almost hit me in the face. Actually, it did hit me. Got a black eye now. So that'll also bring up your tool palette. Then I right-clicked, right mouse clicked, and I went New Palette. And I can give it a name. I'll call this one Fred. And you can just drag and drop stuff on there. So, hope that answered that question. Okay, we're going to take a look at a couple of more things here. And then we will take some more Q&A before we have to end the session. So the first one is I really am old school. I really prefer to use the command line to get things done. Now there are times where I may be working in a large drawing, even larger than this. I've worked on projects which were, ski slopes or ski resorts, just large civil projects. And you often find yourself having to maybe work between one location in the drawing and then another location in the drawing. Now, we have a command in AutoCAD called the view command. And typically you would find a button for that on the ribbon up here. Now, in this case, and this is just something to be aware of anyway, oftentimes you may not see all the tools that exist for the ribbon, okay? In this case, the views option is not available. Now I've made it available by right-clicking here and selecting to show that panel. So I'm going to go ahead in this case, first of all, if you aren't familiar with the view command, it saves a particular view in the drawing, okay, so that I can recall it or restore it at any time. It'll also save the layer properties that were with it and orientation and so forth. I'm not going to get into this too specifically. I'm going to show you just a quick way to get between places. So I encourage you to go into View and then click on Help to learn more about this. But what I'm going to do is create a new view right now. And I'm going to call this one, I like to keep things short and simple when using the command line. I'm going to call it V1. And I'm going to define a window for it. So this will be my view 1 right here. And I am done. So I accept that, and I'll click OK. Now, that was doing it through this dialog, so you know that it exists. What I'm going to do now is scoot on down to the lower portion of this drawing, and I'm going to use the command line. If you were with me last week, in order to suppress a dialog, you type a minus sign or hyphen, and then either the command or in this case, notice there's an alias minus V, okay? And it gives me the same settings that we have in that dialog, but I'm going to go ahead and do everything from the command line, and I'm going to say, let's go ahead and use a window. So I type W, oops, and, oh, sorry. And then it prompts me to save the name. So I'm going to call this V2. And then it prompts me for the window. So I'm going to go ahead and put that window. This is my second view, and it's done creating it. Now, regardless of where I am in the drawing, I can type minus V, R, oops, minus V, enter, R, enter, and then V1. And it takes me there. Minus V, enter, R, enter, V2, enter. You could have this in a macro on the tool palette. You know, just a quick way to get back and forth between locations. And yes, having it as placed on your tool palette as a macro, I mean, that's obviously the faster way, but I've not found it that hard to just type that in real quickly either. Right now, I wasn't. But I am now on a layer employee, and I want to make the layer 0 current quickly. I could reach all the way up there, but both my hands happen to be on the keyboard, so I'm going to type C layer. And it tells me the current layer. I'm going to type 0, enter, and it makes layer 0 current. Quick way to change layers. Obviously, that pull down is very fast and effective, but you could also use C layer in a macro if you were to work with that. If you were with me last week, you ran into this one. I'm going to show it for any new viewers, but I want to create a construction layer. I want to give it a color yellow, and I want to set it current. We could do this in the layer dialog, yes. I don't want to go there. I'm going to type minus LA, enter. I'm going to type M to make the layer CONST current. After I make it, I'm going to give it a color. We're going to go ahead and call that color yellow because that's what the yellow is color yellow is called. And we're going to apply to the construction layer. And voila, there it is, the current layer, construction. Okay, we've got 5 minutes for some Q&A. I'm not going to be able to get into that array function right now. Hopefully I can answer that in the webinar. I'll try to be as complete as possible when we discuss it.
Okay, let me just try and ask a couple of the questions that I think are very quick. And for anybody else, if you had a question, please go ahead and post that to the link that Christina posted, our feedback link, and we'll be happy to go there and answer it there. But just quickly, Volker, a couple of quick ones. Does the measure command work on a polar array?
Yes. I mean, as long as it's... no. I mean, a polar array would be of numerous objects. You would want to just array those objects. The measure command is going to work on a continuous object. So like a circle, okay? It'll work on that. But if you're just going to have an object that you want to array in a polar fashion, then just array it around the center point. I'm not sure how else to answer that.
Okay, that's okay. Maybe in a future webinar we can get a little more in depth in that. And then there were one more. There were a couple questions on if you could just explain again what putting in a dash before the command will do.
Yeah, sure.
What the difference between that is?
Sure. So if I were to type in V for view, or go up to the ribbon and select view, it brings up the dialog. I want to suppress and access the functions of that dialog from the command line. So I would type in a hyphen or minus V or view, minus view, and it gives me all the options on the command line. Which is how we worked with this stuff before we had dialogues in AutoCAD. We used the rename command earlier, right? So here's rename, this dialog. And if we take a look, minus rename or hyphen rename, all these same options are available here.
Yeah, so one of the real benefits to that is folks that use a lot of script or Lisp, you obviously can't use commands that need a dialog box if you're running script and Lisp, but you're just running through several commands. But using the command line version of those same tools allows you to do that. So it's really beneficial for Lisp and script and those sorts of things. So I'm going to run the last poll here while we have a couple minutes left.
Great.
And it's just
after you're done with that, I'd like to just show the resources on the slide. So
sure.
Yeah,
yep.
Go ahead, Sean.
No problem. So we're at about 70%, and so far it's 100% yes. So that is great to see. We're
awesome.
Glad that everybody picked up some new tools today.
Yeah, we are happy to hear that. We'll try and keep that going. Hey, here's some additional resources, all right? We have a minute or so left here. These are on the PowerPoint slide that you can download from the link that'll be in the follow-up email from GoToMeeting. We have a lot of blogs where you can get some great tips and tricks from Lynn Allen, Heidi Hewitt, Sean Hurley. These are all industry names. They are all intelligent people. Sean and I, we actually work on the Without a Net blog. There's developer blogs, and the complete list of blogs is also available just at Autodesk.com blogs. I've put in a link to the AutoCAD startup switches and LT startup switches because some are not available in LT that are available in AutoCAD. And a biggie here, Autodesk Screencast. This is a great tip. Okay, if you have to share information with someone else in your office or outside of your office on how to do something in AutoCAD, or you want to send us a support request and want to show us what's going on, go to Autodesk Screencast, okay, and grab their utility where you can record what's happening on your screen. The cool thing about this utility is not only does it record audio and video, it also records the keyboard commands and mouse clicks that you use. So that way we can follow, or your other users in your company can follow exactly the steps you're using. You can then upload to the site and make those videos available to everybody if you want to just teach the world, or you can make them private to only those who have the link. Okay, this is a free utility. It's great. All you need to do is sign in using your Autodesk account. Whew, got that out.
Very good.
I think that's about it for time, right, Sean?
We are right at the time, so thank you so much, Fokker, and I'm glad to see everybody really enjoyed the session today and learned some new things. We hope to see you all next week for our next session, so thank you again. Everyone have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.